May 5th, 2015. This time we'll reconvene our City Council meeting. No action was taken in our closed session item. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember John Pena will lead us in the pledge. Please stand.
Thank you. Please join with me. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll move to public comment. This is for matters that are not on the agenda. If you would like to speak, please fill out an orange form, which is located in the back, and provide it to our city clerk. This time we have 2 requests to speak, and I will call you up. You've got about 3 minutes at the podium, and I would ask, please, for the record, to provide your name and address. First one would be from Jeannie Gathram.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeannie Gathram, is it on? 44341 West Sundown Crest, La Quinta 92253. And last month, the council approved a grant for Math Field Day for La Quinta Middle School. And we were asked to all bring a poster to the competition, which was just held Saturday at John Glenn Middle School. And this is the poster I made. And on it, I wrote, team sponsored by La Quinta Community Services Grant. And then this was up for there were 3 school districts there. There were over 300 children and 7 combined Rotary clubs. And then it says, thank you, La Quinta Community Service and City Council. And I wanted to give you this. I don't know if you want to put it up or not. This is the shirt you paid for. La Quinta Mathematicians, Bulldog Mathematicians, and all the team name is on the back. And it was, the competition was just on Saturday, and I have darling pictures, but I didn't know until last night the council meeting was till today, so I didn't have time to print you a picture. But I'd like to send you a picture of the team, and I have an extra shirt. Just, we really, really appreciated it. Well, you paid for our bus, you bought breakfast for my team, and we got to all get off the bus together wearing these beautiful shirts that you paid for, and it meant a lot to us. And we just found out this afternoon, they announced it about 10 minutes before I left school, that our school, La Quinta Middle School, won a gold award and an exemplary recommendation from the state of California.
Excellent.
There were only 5 schools that did, and we were one of them, and I got goosebumps telling you that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I know if the photos are in the Bulldog newsletter, we're on the distribution list, and each one of us, I know, enjoy reading the accolades of the school, and if this event is highlighted, then that would suffice.
It is. It was in there last month, and you were thanked for paying it, and then the pictures will be in.
Great.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you.
If I had had more time, I would have had the kids here with me.
We appreciate you sharing the good news. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, we will move on to Gregory Mangus.
Thank you. My name is Gregory Mangus. I live at 43227 Corte del Oro, La Quinta. I'm here to hopefully prod you along on a traffic signal that I think is needed on Jefferson Street between Indio Boulevard and Fred Waring Drive. I'd like to bring your attention to a recent article in the Desert Sun about the Riverside County planning to install a new traffic signal on Country Club Drive. It was reevaluated after a Tustin woman died in an accident at the intersection of Avenue 42. I'm sorry, at the intersection of Adams Street. The intersection I'm talking about on Jefferson Street is traveled by approximately 50,000 vehicles a day, according to a current CBAG traffic count.
This is Dunbar and Esplanade.
Right next to the Esplanade.
Yeah.
Okay. Country Club Drive where they're going to put the signal in, is only traveled by 6,000 to 9,000 vehicles a day. Coming out of that development onto Jefferson Street, it is not pleasant. It's quite dangerous. The median landscaping has grown up too much and needs to be eliminated so that you can see farther down the road, or put in the signal. I know that the city of La Quinta has something where between $250,000 and $500,000 that our development put into your funds back when it was originally developed for that traffic signal. I'd like to see that money used. I know you need to go to the city of Indio, push them to get their half of it. Don't let a tragedy such as this that took place on Country Club spur you to do the same thing on Jefferson Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. Before you leave the podium, I will let you know that, yes, you're right. We do have funding for that, and we all believe that that signal is very important. We've had difficulties working with our sister city to provide their half of the funding because the street is split, and we will continue to look for ways to see if they can reprioritize for safety reasons some of their projects in their city to accommodate this, because we're prepared to do that. We just, it needs to be a project that's collaborative.
One other quick thing I wanted to add in there, I talked to your city transportation person. He got the recent CVAG traffic count there. And he said, of course, when the new interchange on the Interstate 10 is in there, it's only going to go up that much more. So we need to push that as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I've got one more. This is regarding consent calendar item number 22 on Monroe Street, but I would like to bring up Tom Brohart. I'm sorry. Tom, come on up.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Tom Brohart, 81905 Mountain View Lane, La Quinta. I'm here to support the staff's recommendation on item 22. I understand that also includes grading of the shoulder on the west side of the street, and our little association fully supports that recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move on to confirmation of agenda. Announcements, presentation, any changes to the agenda?
We'd suggest that we move public hearing item number 2 to public hearing number 1 and just switch them around because there's probably going to be a lot more interest in the second public hearing than the first.
Councilmember Osborne, I believe you have a conflict with that one.
I do. Public hearing item number 1 is within 500 feet of my personal residence, so I will have to step out on that item when it comes before us. But I'm sure that item would be somewhat of a short discussion. I don't know, up to you guys, but that's fine.
All right.
This would include consent calendar items?
Just changes to the agenda first, and we'll move to consent next.
If I can, Madam Mayor, on this agenda in itself, on the consent calendar.
We'll be moving to consent.
Well, no, just regarding the agenda and changes to the agenda. Item 12 on the consent calendar, and well, item 17, I have numerous questions on item 17, and maybe we can just answer those questions within the discussion on the consent. But item 12, I would like to add to the business item and remove it from the consent calendar.
Okay.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Franklin.
All right, let's go forward. 1 second. Okay. I'd like to pull item number 17, make it business 4. I'd like to pull 18 and 19 for discussion. I'd like to pull 22 for business 5 and pull 24 for business 6. Other than that, it's fine.
And which is the business 6?
Number 24.
24.
Okay.
Item 24, yes. What was the 5?
5 was number 19.
No, 5 is number 22. Because I had mine in order and Lee made 12-3.
Right. So 12, 17.
17, business 4. 22 business 5, and 24 business 6. And then just 18 and 19 for discussion.
It'll be a rough road, but we'll do it. Robert?
Number 23, I'd like to have some comments on it.
Okay.
Don't know if it has to be a business item, but I'd like to make some comments.
For discussion.
For discussion, yes.
Okay, any other changes to the agenda? Let's move on to announcements, presentations, and written communications so that we can finagle our consent agenda and business items. Number 1, Mental Health Month proclamation, and I would like to ask the representative to meet me at the podium. Sandy Nahai is with us, joining us today. May is, Susan was telling me that I can do this and we can stand together. Microphone. Exactly. May is National Mental Health Month, and Sandy is with the Riverside County Desert Board of Behavioral Health, and we all know that mental health is critical to the well-being and vitality of our families, our communities, as well as our businesses, and that mental health disorders and health problems can affect people of all ages and backgrounds. And we observe May as the national month, and we call upon everybody to just increase awareness and understanding of mental illness and the need for appropriate and accessible services for people with mental illness. And I'm going to present this proclamation, but I wanted to just add a few stats that are included in here, in that the National Institute of Mental Health reports that 1 in 4 adults, which is approximately 57.7 million Americans, experience a mental health disorder in a given year, and that this includes 140,000 people of all ages in Riverside County alone that may be impacted by serious mental health illness and may seek treatment from a variety of community resources. And those are the cases that we know about. There's so many untapped cases that people are out there and needing help. We need to work to identify that. And there's a 10% of children and adolescents within the United States that suffer from a serious emotional and mental disorder, which obviously causes significant functional impairment, and that half of Americans experience some type of mental disorder at some time in their lives. This is quite significant.
Right.
And I know it's been a heightened awareness
Right.
with some of the unfortunate tragedies, which we would like to protect our community from.
Mm-hmm.
And on behalf of the City Council, it's my privilege to present you with this proclamation deeming May National Mental Health Month. And we want to thank you and your organization for all the efforts. And if you want to take a few minutes, Sandy,
Yes.
to share a little bit about what you do.
I want to thank City Council. Yes, it's a very dear to my heart. I have 2 sons that are mentally ill and have been since 1989. I've been very involved in, I hope you can hear me, NAMI.
Switch.
Okay. NAMI, which is National Alliance on Mental Illness. There's affiliates all over the United States, and ours is NAMI of Coachella Valley. I want to thank the first responders. They have a very difficult situation. I'm a little saddened that it's taking so long for them to get trained to be able to know how to handle it, but slowly it is being in surrounding like San Jacinto, and eventually come into this area. So it's as Linda mentioned, it does hit everybody. Can be on a small scale or a large scale. And awareness and education, advocacy, and support is what it's all about. I think.
And NAMI needs an office here in the Coachella Valley.
Definitely.
Because they're right now in the, is it the Hemet or San Bernardino area?
No.
They're not directly in our valley.
Yes,
right
we
now.
are.
We have an office in the
No,
valley.
we don't have an office, unfortunately. We are all volunteers.
Okay.
We had a meeting last night. We meet at a church. We keep trying to find new places to meet. And there is, unfortunately, this stigma being dealing with mental illness. Mm-hmm. And as we said, it hits, every socioeconomic group, ethnicity, just all, the whole spectrum. So we have worked with the county over the years. We do have the millionaire's tax, but as you know, with the city and politics, doing a grant writing, it's taken a long time. maybe eventually we'll get there. Our affiliate is rather small, and I used to think it was because of the snowbirds, but it's just a little combination of everything. So it's just awareness and people coming out and helping to make it something that maybe eventually
Top of mind.
yes.
Right.
So again,
Well, thank you.
so much.
Thank you for your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Oh, excuse me. I meant to mention that our board, of which I'm a member also, the Riverside County Board of Mental Health, is putting on an art show next week at the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission from 11 to 1 or 1:30. And you can't believe some of the artwork. It is for sale. I've been involved in it with the last 2 or 3 years, and it's, if you have the time to come by, it's really something to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Okay, our next presentation will be Mark Johnson with the Coachella Valley Water District. It's a water resources update. Another top-of-mind subject.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, city staff, and distinguished guests. My name is Mark Johnson. I'm Director of Engineering for the Coachella Valley Water District. I'm also a resident of the city of La Quinta and a volunteer. Today I would like to discuss the drought, how CVWD is responding to the drought, a little bit about the Griffin Lakes project, the estates at Griffin Lake, and chromium, a little update on chromium-6. All of these things are fast upon us and directly affecting all the residents of La Quinta. So as you know, California is in the 4th year of its worst drought in recorded history. This is Lake Oroville, which is the State Water Project main reservoir in Northern California. Not much water. Droughts are not new to California. On average, California experiences 4.6 years of drought out of every 10 years. So why is this drought different? For 2 reasons. It's the worst drought on record since 1850. And 2, there is speculation. The fear is that if climate change is real, this might be the new normal for California. But only time will tell. In the meantime, severe domestic water use restrictions have been handed down by the state, and we must comply with those regulations by February 28th, 2016, or face fines. And this is a photo of Lake Shasta, also in the State Water Project system in Northern California. Before we get into the water reduction mandates, I'd like to remind everybody of our water management mileposts that we have achieved over the last 100 years, and of our current water management plan that ensures we will have a reliable, sustainable supplies of water for generations to come. This is a photo of a group of farmers drilling a well early in the 20th century in Coachella Valley. California may experience periodic droughts, but here in the Coachella Valley, we're always in drought. With only 3 inches of average rainfall per year, this is one of the driest places on the planet. It's because of this fact that the visionaries and planners for the development of the Coachella Valley demanded that we never rely on only one source of water. Back then, our only source of water was the aquifer, and by 1915, planners knew that this single source, in of itself, would be unable to sustain growth and development. This is a photo of a gentleman by the name of Bernard Johnson, no distant relative. He was a pioneer date farmer in the valley, bringing offshoots from Algeria for planting. CVWD started its groundwater management program back in 1918 by impounding runoff from the Whitewater River and percolating this runoff into the aquifer. This is a photo from 1920. CVWD also entered into negotiations with the federal government for importation of Colorado River water. This is a photo of the Colorado River Compact, where the federal government divided the river into the upper and lower basin states. So the first deliveries of Colorado River water were made to local farms in 1949. The Eastern Basin recovered immediately, and overdraft was eliminated for nearly 30 years. And just for a little statistical perspective, from the aquifer, farms use about 14% of the water taken from the aquifer, golf courses use 26%, and urban and other uses use 60%. Of all the water that we supply, farms use 50%, golf 17%, and urban is 33%. CVWD acquired its first wastewater reclamation facility in Palm Desert in 1967, which produced recycled water for one golf course. Today, we supply 53 golf courses with alternative water supplies. And by 2025, we will be supplying 105 golf courses, or 85% of the golf courses in the valley, with alternative supplies, either recycled wastewater or Colorado River water. CVWD and Desert Water Agency in the 60s and early 70s became contractors for the State Water Project water. Today, we are the third largest entitlement holder on the State Water Project and have percolated 3.3 million acre-feet of water back into the Western Basin. As a result of the quantification settlement agreement in 2003, CVWD increased its entitlement on the Colorado River water and is actively using this water to replenish the East Basin. And this is a photo of the Thomas E. Levy groundwater recharge facility in La Quinta, which was put in service in 2009. So all of this stuff didn't happen by magic. We actually have a plan. CVWD developed and adopted the Coachella Valley Water Management Plan in 2002. It was updated in 2010. And each time we did this, the document, the environmental impact statement, was available for public comment. And we did get public comment. And just last year, we provided a status report to our board on how we were doing compared to the plan. It's a 35-year plan with a goal to reliably meet current and future water demands in a cost-effective and sustainable manner. And it has 4 elements: water conservation, including urban, agriculture, and golf courses, additional water supplies, groundwater recharge, and source substitution. And we've made great strides in the last 10 years in meeting the needs of all of those 10 elements. For example, our urban customers have already reduced their consumption by 25% since 2002. In the period of 2005 through 2007, we conducted an extraordinary water conservation in agriculture, which saved 72,000 acre-feet. And our golf course task force has committed to reductions of 10%. So our water management plan includes a 35-year outlook. And you'll see the red line is the baseline demand, what we project the water demands to be going in the future, and it includes growth. And the various components of the water supply are down below. So you can see our plan, if implemented, which includes the 4 elements I mentioned, and the Colorado River water, our local supplies, State Water Project water, recycled water, and down the road we are going to actually utilize desalinated agricultural drain water for a supply, and water conservation. We can meet the demands going out to 2045 at a minimum. We also put this graph together for the board because there's been concern about overdraft. Yes, our aquifers have been in overdraft, but since we put the Thomas E. Levy facility in service, artesian conditions have actually returned to the eastern Coachella Valley. And this graph shows, if you look at the green line, which is a 20-year running average of the change in storage in all the aquifers throughout the Coachella Valley, overdraft will be eliminated by 2021. So let's talk a little bit about water conservation. 70 to 80% of water use in the Coachella Valley is outdoor irrigation. In 2009, CVWD adopted our landscape ordinance 1302.1, and it is considered the most stringent landscape ordinance in California. So that's only been in place since 2009. So as we get into my presentation in a little bit, it's what happened before then that we need to deal with. Turf irrigation is a critical short-term and long-term issue. And the district has been active in issuing turf rebates for urban, commercial, and golf. And I've been told that all of our turf rebate programs have resulted in the removal of 6 million square feet of turf. So this is a aerial photograph of a typical subdivision in the Coachella Valley. I won't say where. And this is a aerial photograph of a typical subdivision in Tucson. And you can see the difference in the greenery there. And I've been pretty familiar with Tucson, spending the last 4 years there, attending visits with my son. So I can tell you that it is a really different landscape. And it's something that the Coachella Valley needs to strive to go towards. It's not going to happen overnight. We know that. That's why our plan calls for water conservation over a 35-year period. But it has to be done. And this morning, as many of you know, I'm a very active person. I hike, I swim, I golf. And this morning was a little too cool for swimming, so I went for a walk in my normal area in North La Quinta. And I just got a new Apple Watch, and my heart rate monitor there started going pretty high when I went by the Palm Royale development. So here's a picture at 4:30 this morning at Palm Royale of the sprinklers going full tilt, spraying water on a flower bed that has no flowers, and the water is going down the gutter into Fred Waring. I mean, this stuff has to stop. Here's a photo around the corner. This is looking up Washington towards Fred Waring, where the sprinklers are going full bore. Most of it's going on the sidewalk. So this is the type of mentality that we have to change. And I think this drought is going to kickstart it. So I've taken the step. This is my residence in North La Quinta. Here's the before picture. The turf removal. Bye-bye turf. Some minor plants and rocks, and replacing the turf with stone and rock. And there you go. And this will come in play in a minute, my water bill for March a year ago was 20 CCF, and this year it was 7, just by doing this project. So it works. Notice you didn't see me doing any of the work. I
did notice. I wasn't going to say anything.
Supervisor, I'm the supervisor. I know there's an item on this coming up, and I'd be glad to stay, but I just wanted to mention that we have reviewed this project, the estates at Griffin Lake. It meets the requirements of Landscape Ordinance 1302.1, the most stringent ordinance in the state of California. Landscape irrigation for this project is going to be provided from the Colorado River water source. It's not going to be domestic water. It'll be the first project in the Coachella Valley to use dual piping, which is where we want to go. There's going to be one set of pipes for potable water, and there'll be a set of purple pipes for non-potable water. So the lake that they're proposing is going to be storing Colorado River water for use for irrigation. And we want to make sure that we can get as much water demand off the aquifer as we can and use Colorado River water because we have plenty of it. And that's what this project does. And also, the growth for this project, the growth increment is included in our water management plan projections. So it's included in our planning. So let's get to the drought. Governor Brown initiated various drought actions over the last year. On April 1st, he issued an executive order directing the State Water Resources Control Board to impose mandatory statewide 25% restriction and reduction in urban water use. And that's critical, urban water use. It's not golf courses, it's not ag. And we are required to reduce 36% because our demands per capita are higher than the rest of the state. But they didn't take into account the fact that we live in a desert. They didn't take into account that we have a snowbird population. It's not included in the population figure. So that's why we got dinged a little higher. Actually, the State Water Resources Control Board is taking action today and tomorrow. So what I'm about to tell you may change a little bit. We'll find out in the next 24 hours. So what are we doing? We're recommending an ordinance imposing mandatory water use restrictions, stage 3, with drought penalties, which I'll get into in a minute. That'll happen on May 12th, at our board meeting on May 12th. We've already had a study session and a board discussion on this, and it was very heavily attended. We're coordinating with the cities to reduce water use, developing customer outreach and education, and discussing formation of a customer advisory committee related to water conservation. So here's what we are proposing. The board may or may not adopt this, and again, we may get some additional information from the state in the next few days. But these are the prohibitions. Application of potable water to outdoor landscapes during and within 48 hours of measurable rainfall is prohibited. Irrigation with potable water of ornamental turf on public street medians and parkways. The governor's just used the word medians. We're proposing to add parkways as well. So it's not just down the middle of the street, it's the stuff on the side of the street. Irrigation with potable water of new homes and buildings that are not in accordance with the California Building Code. And that basically means that they have to use, the latest irrigation techniques. Use of fountains, decorative water features. So we're asking that the fountains be not used during this time frame unless they're used for aquatic pets or something like that. Serving drinking water other than upon request at restaurants. Applying potable water to outdoor landscapes that cause runoff. You saw some pictures before. Applying water to any hard surface. Washing down your pool deck. Using hose without a shutoff valve when washing your automobile. So some of these things came from the governor. Some of them we've embellished a little bit. Some things that are discouraged: draining or refilling pools, overseeding, planting of spray irrigating flower beds. Other items that are included in the ordinance are limiting urban outdoor irrigation to 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. I believe this one's going to be a hot topic at our board meeting because there are some that feel that we shouldn't do that because it may even cause more water use than allowing people to use a little bit every day than making up for it on maybe 3 or 4 days. So I think that's going to be a hot topic at the discussion. Overseed budget is eliminated. We used to allow an extra budget item in the fall for overseeding. We're eliminating that. Repair broken sprinklers within 24 hours. Use pool covers. And HOAs are encouraged to adopt and enforce these water use regulations. So let's talk about the drought penalties. Governed by Proposition 26, they're not governed by Prop 218, so we don't have to go out for a public vote. It utilizes a penalty to encourage reduced water use. It does not change the tiered rate structure, as we'll get into in a minute, and it penalizes customers who do not reduce water use by 36%. So there's the prohibitions, I'm sorry.
We've got the table on our screens up here. Are you catching up to the table?
Okay. So here's the current, this is an example of our current budget-based tiered rates for a typical residential customer that uses 43 CCF. The first 10 CCF is the indoor water use, which is the base budget, and this customer is efficient with 33 CCF in the second tier. So their total water bill under existing conditions would be $47.06 for that monthly period. So what we're proposing to do is there would be no penalty in Tier 1. 10 CCF would be at the same price. But at Tier 2, you can use 64% of the amount that's allocated in Tier 2. In this case, the budget was 33 CCF. So if you're about 21 CCF, you're okay. But if you go over that amount, you're going to get charged a penalty, and it's going to be, excuse me, $2.51 for any amount that's in excess of 64%. And the penalty rates go up even further. If you're wasteful up in Tier 5, the penalty rate is $10.03. So in this particular example, if this customer did not reduce their water consumption, they just kept it at 43 CCF, the bill would be $76.88. So it pays to cut that water use. So in my example, where my budget, I think, is about, I think it was 27 CCF, and I've, gone from, at least in March, from 20 down to 7, I would be not penalized because I've already taken action. So those that take action won't be penalized as well.
So are you in effect mandating people take out their turf?
No. No, you can shut off your water or take out your turf or find some other way to reduce.
Well, either it dies or...
Yeah.
So in effect you are.
Or in some cases, just cutting back on the amount of water that you put on the turf, at least during this period.
And I think the important message is, if you already see an efficient or an excellent on your bill now, that's a good thing. And for the internal use, you won't be penalized. The focus is on that external use beyond the 10 CCFs.
Yes.
That's where you've got to make those adjustments. So if you're doing everything you think you should be doing or can be doing in your own home, you won't be penalized as a result on that initial 10 CCFs.
And here's a graph that kind of displays it a little bit better. So if you, Tier 1, you're good. If you're 64% of your budget in Tier 2, you're good. But if you go beyond that, you're going to get penalized.
Mark, may I interject something
Sure.
for just a sec? A couple of things. One is we took out all the sod in our backyard, and we put in the artificial turf, and it looks beautiful and wonderful. However, I dumped out by not going to CVWD before we did this, so they could do the measurement and everything, so I got no rebate at all. So just a word of caution, if you're gonna do it, contact CVWD first. Otherwise,
And
you're
I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, we had such a demand for the rebates that they got used up in 3 months' time. But we're taking application now for rebates that will be issued hopefully in July because we believe our board is going to approve a substantial amount of additional rebates. So we're taking applications now.
Yeah. One other thing too, on the in terms of our HOA, at any rate, they control our water usage. I mean, the Duber's locked and it's in the front of the. So anything that CVWD can do in terms of, I don't know how you do that, but that could be a real problem. But they do it for water.
Yeah. So this is serious. We're taking it very seriously, obviously. And we could be subject, the water district, to $10,000 a day fines if we don't comply with this. So times are changing.
How much longer we have, Mark? How are we doing?
I got about
No, I mean in the presentation.
a few minutes, just 2 minutes.
Okay.
So we're trying to coordinate with the cities. We're inviting city managers to an information sharing meeting, asking the cities to reduce 36%. Asking the cities to suspend fines and code enforcement for brown lawns, and assisting cities in removing ornamental turf in medians, parkways, and other non-recreational areas.
Can you define assisting?
Well, we do have some rebates for commercial type stuff. We're applying for grants as much as we can. So if we can help monetarily, yes, we will, but certainly technically, yeah. So the next steps to monitor the actions of the State Water Resource Control Board. We're going to revise our water shortage contingency plan ordinance and adopt this new one on May 12th. Implement and continue coordination. Just one quick thing. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but this is also a very hot topic at the water district, and that is chromium in drinking water. The Coachella Valley aquifer has naturally occurring chromium. It's in the sediments, it's mixed with the water. California adopted a new maximum contaminant level for chromium in drinking water at 10 parts per billion on July 1st, 2014. They went ahead of the US EPA. US EPA has not adopted a national standard. So we're faced with this issue. 30 of our 100 active wells are impacted. We've done extensive studies. We knew this was coming, so for the last 18 months we've been working with an engineering firm by the name of Hazen and Sawyer. We've done a lot of pilot testing, and we've decided that a treatment technique called ion exchange treatment is the best alternative. It's the best solution, the least costly solution. Ion exchange treatment is pretty much like a water softener. A water softener removes calcium and magnesium from the water. These vessels will have a special media inside, polystyrene beads that are specifically made to remove chromium. But like everything else in water treatment, once you remove something, you got to deal with what you removed. So that's the tricky part. But anyways, we're dealing with that. The cost, $200 million. The O&M costs for dealing with these new facilities will be about an additional $9 million per year. And we estimate that the typical water bill, based before the mandate, would go up by $30 to $50 per month. So your water bill is going to double because of this federal, state regulation. So I'm sorry to take a lot of your time, but I really feel that this is very, very important issues, and wanted to give you the latest, and I'll be welcome to answer any other questions you might have. And, so.
We'll expect you back in a couple weeks after the May 12th. So
yes,
look at,
sure.
I know that our team, Steve's been at public hearings and was definitely in tune with looking at how new developments come forward and what we can do as a city to encourage and educate our residents. So any questions for Mark? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. I would like to propose orchestrating it as such. First of all, I believe there is a conflict for item number 21 for Councilmember Osborne. So if we can vote on item number 21 first, I will call for that.
Move the consent calendar, item number 21.
Second?
There's a motion and second for item 21. Please vote. Motion passes. Would you be agreeing? 4 in favor and 1 abstention by Councilmember Osborne. Okay. Now I would recommend, I would ask for a motion for consent items number 1 through 11, 13 through 16, 18 through 20, and 23 as
We're going
amended.
to discuss 18 and 19.
Sure, we're going to do the motion, we'll do the motion and then talk. We're discussing, right. So 1 through 11, 13 to 16, 18 to 20, and item number 23.
I'll second that, or make that motion.
Okay. And before we vote, questions, comments?
Yes.
Go ahead and start, Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Regarding item number 23, I mean, this is an item regarding our landscape and lighting assessment district. And this is something we have to do each year. We're well aware of the negative position in our landscape and lighting. But one thing I've mentioned in the past, and I'll mention again, within the staff report, it talks about our parks and the cost to maintain our parks, $1 million plus. But I want to make the statement that the cost of the parks was never intended to be included in the landscape and lighting district fee within the last 15 years. Originally, when that landscape and lighting and park fee was structured in the 1980s, I want to say, maybe early 90s, the parks were included in that. But the parks have been removed from that calculation, I'm going to guess 15 years, maybe it's, give or take a few. So it's a challenge for me to understand that the landscape and lighting district is a negative position within strictly the landscape and lighting district in itself, not including the parks. However, we continue to include the parks just to show from an overall standpoint the parks in itself are negative. But I just wanted to make a comment that it was never included it was never intended to be included in the $35 per parcel. Thank you.
Right, and that 1.5 million deficit that we experience each year is one of the reasons why we have to look at revenue enhancement options.
Correct, absolutely.
Because we made decisions in the past to fund those. So.
My comment was very much in line with Councilmember Osborne. However, I would say that it's important to talk about this, to just remind our citizens and that this is an issue. And it's a little bit of an aneurysm because it's there, it's lingering around, and we need to find sources of funding. If we just look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and we look at what $35.60 of 1997 money is today, would be $52.06. If you multiply that by the dwellings that the EDUs, we would have a much very close,
yeah.
Very close.
Yeah.
Right?
Not much of a shortfall.
And I would like kudos to our city staff that always works through this. The saving that is reported here in the staff report, $60,000 in water, and that connects back to the need for us to really take seriously looking at the northern parkways when it comes down to repurposing our landscaping, because that will save additional money on the water and will probably help with the yearly maintenance. So these are the comments I wanted to make.
Okay. Comments on other items?
Yes. Consent 18.
Community Services Work Plan.
Work Plan. On the second page, there's a list of, well, actually, first page of what they plan to do, liaison with the community for the events and so forth.
Can you turn your microphone on, please?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. The only thing that I would like to see, and I don't have the wording for this, But somehow, I would like to see as one of their duties, shall you say, or jobs, and that would be more interaction with council items that we are trying to promote within the community. And what I'm saying is I don't think we've used our boards and commissions well enough, and somehow I'd like that to be worked into this language, if we could.
So strengthen the liaison to council
Yes,
component
yes.
in interaction to meet the
Right.
goals and objectives of the community services work
Very
plan.
good. Yeah. Wordsmith.
Got that, Edie? Excellent. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion and a second for items number 1 through 11, 13 to 16, 18 to 20, and item number 23. Please vote.
We're still going to discuss 19, right? Yes?
Sure. If you want to discuss it before you.
I do.
Motion passes unanimously.
Yes. Go ahead. Okay, very quick on 19, on page 138. Linda's sending this letter to all of our new businesses and perhaps to some of the old. And at the end of the letter, it states the Quinta Chamber of Commerce will check in with you as part of our new business outreach program. And I think that's just wonderful. But what do we have set up to know that this is going to happen? Because I don't want a letter signed by you, with us, with that there, and nothing happens. I'm not saying nothing happens, but if we're saying we're going to do it, then we need to figure out what the plan is and how it's going to work.
I actually had requested that I offer a few suggestions and revisions to these letters, but I would like to have this approved as a concept template for what we're doing.
Right.
So if you're comfortable with these letters going out, but seeing them before that happens, with some minor adjustments.
I would agree with that. I would agree with the concept, but I think that it needs to be changes to the language.
I just didn't get
I had
to mine.
suggested some language as well too.
Perfect, yeah. So with that, okay, that consent calendar as amended passes unanimously. Excellent, you did that quite well. Let's move on to business session items. Number 1, approve an art purchase agreement with Jane Dedeker and National Sculptors Build for design and installation of a sculpture at Sealy Drive Roundabout. And we'll start with staff reports.
Yes, thank you. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this item comes before you. It is part of the Art and Public Places Strategic Plan to identify locations throughout the city where it would be good to place public art. And the Sealy Roundabout location was one of those items. So we're last year, or several months ago, we put together an RFP. The commission gave us input about the types of things they'd like to see in that particular piece of art. We talked about the theme for that particular piece of art, that it would tie into healthy living. It's adjacent to Pioneer Park. It's adjacent to the Eisenhower facility and the new Palms retirement facility. So we felt like we had very good feedback from the commission on that, tied to the theme. That theme, they also wanted some intergenerational ties with children and adults. And so we sent that RFP out. We tried to send it to a number of local artists, and about 8 of those artists we sent RFPs out locally to get the word out, because we were looking for a realism or a realistic type of piece of art for that location, something that you could really tell was family or intergenerational. We didn't get any responses from anyone locally. We did get several proposals which we took to the commission, and the commission selected the one you have before you, which is Jane Dedeker. So that piece of art is a bronze, and it's of a father and a mother swinging a child. And in our communication with the artist indicated that she would be interested in enhancing that piece of artwork. I will tell you that there was something a little bit different about this piece of art than some of the others that you've seen before. And that has to do with this piece of art is what is called, it's original, but it is not one of a kind. And I would make that distinction to you because it's not uncommon for public art to be set up in that way. And I've been in conversations several times with our city attorney about that issue. We discussed it with the city attorney, we discussed it with the commission, about that there was a distinction between those two factors. This artist, the way that it was explained to us, is this artist did create this piece of work. This artist, it is located in one other location, and this artist is willing to customize and enhance the piece of art you have before you by changing the patina and adding elements. And so that's why we're bringing this to you today. It is a little bit different than issues that you've seen before. Bill may want to speak to that, about that specific information that he gave us that we shared with the commission. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I would like your feedback about how you think about this piece of art today. And we do have a couple of people from our commission that are here that could speak on it. So.
Questions of staff?
Was this a unanimous vote of the commission to go with this?
It was not. It was a 3-to-1 vote.
Okay. And do we know why there was a dissent?
Yes. It was over this issue of it's not a single one-of-a-kind piece, and it had, the commissioner that opposed this item wanted to throw everything out and start again with a new RFP.
How many submissions did we receive?
We received 5. 1 was completely not acceptable. We took 4, and I brought the other 4. I understand that there was interest in seeing the other proposals. I brought them for you. They weren't the type, they were not quite what the commission had asked for in terms of being realism. There was some stylistic type work, and you can kind of see why the commission chose the piece that they chose, because they chose realism, and they're all bronze, but you can certainly see the type of artwork that they had to choose from.
I think for the future, it'd be nice to see what was presented to them, their recommendation, and why they went with that recommendation.
We could certainly make that. It just, you hadn't asked for that in the past, but we're happy to do that.
I had difficulties trying to configure 6 feet high and 3 feet wide, knowing there's humans with space and a swinging child, and how to get that on just that pedestal, not making these little tiny stick figures.
They will make the pad to fit the 3 people and the, if you choose, if you want to have a pet. One of the ideas was to put a puppy there because the dog park is nearby, and flowers in her hand or something like a picnic basket to emphasize fun and healthy living and that sort of thing. So that's the kind of thing that we were in conversation with the artist and the National Sculptors Guild about.
The artist has some very impressive pieces. I'm familiar with a couple of them in Cerritos, but she's done quite an extensive array.
She has a very extensive background. Mm-hmm. This is a bronze work. It is likely that if we went, it's not absolute, but it is likely that if we went out for a bid, we would not get a bronze of this magnitude. Just my experience over the last 10 years and the types of pieces, it doesn't mean you won't get another lovely piece if you went out to RFP again, but it's likely that you won't get a bronze with the multiple pieces that you have before you this evening.
Is anybody bothered that there's not a leash on the dog? I'm sorry, that was like, wait, we need to put a leash on this dog.
There is some concern about something that thin, that it could be vandalized. Mm-hmm. And we have had some of our pieces vandalized in our parks, so that was one of the issues that we had talked about.
We'll pretend they're in the dog park. Any other comments, questions?
I have some comments, but I'd like to hear from the commission first, if they could, Madam Mayor.
Okay, who will be speaking on behalf of the commission? Paula? Paula Simons, come on up. Name and new address for it.
Good afternoon. I'm Paula Simons on the Community Services Commission, and I did want to touch base on the recommendation for this piece. Again, when we brought forth about healthy living, looking at the space, the area, I'm a North La Quinta resident, and I'm often over there with my little dog at the dog park, driven around the space. There was conversation about how this would fit in, the intergenerational component. Amongst all of the pieces that were presented, this one stood out. It felt like it just fit the nature of what we were looking for. and that when it comes to the concept of original, and even going back through the art purchase proposal paperwork that we receive, there's statements that the proposal, the city has set aside a budget for the turnkey project, including but not limited to design, estimate, professional services, approvals, and full implementation of the original sculpture. When it comes down to the artist representation of this, that the artist is the creator and owner of the original artwork, which again, I know for me, that stemmed into what we were looking for presentation for you to consider for approval. The artwork is unique and individual and does not infringe on any copyright. Again, based on what we were looking for, it's a component where it fits in healthy living, the design creation and the budget fit into what we were looking at, and that's why it came down to the vote. And amongst the other commissioners that were approving, that was about the nature of what we landed on to recommend to your submission based on the other presentations that were there. If you have any questions.
Anything else for Paula? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
Okay. Sure. Thank you. So in this piece, it's a, I don't want to say replication, but she's done this before, so she's recreating what she's put before us with a couple small changes, whether that be the dog and the flowers, I don't know. I think it's a beautiful piece. I love the piece, and I love the idea of putting it there in the park and in that area. I think it's one of the better pieces from a family standpoint and the children. So I think it's a great piece. My question too is the cost. Is the cost really replicant of a copy of something she's already done versus an original that hasn't been done before?
We think it is. The cost of a bronze, and let me give you information about the last piece we just did. That might help set that. That piece was one figure, well, one and a child.
We're talking about the Sinaloa roundabout.
The Sinaloa, well, yes, the Sinaloa. She said to me after the fact that she lost money on that. That if she had to do it over again, she likely would not have bid on it. She was glad to do it. She loved being in La Quinta. She had been in the La Quinta Arts Festival. But the true cost of that piece was greater than what she received from that. So in doing that, that's why we added a little bit more to the cost. That was $80,000 when we did that. Right. We added a little bit more to that. But the cost of bronze and the cost of replicating and doing this kind of work is expensive. And we know that from some of the other pieces, the very large pieces that we have all over the city, and even worked with developers on, whether it was Griffin Ranch, some of the courses at Griffin Ranch, the Andalusia piece, those are very expensive pieces and far exceeded what we have here.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I just have some comments. Lovely piece. I personally, I would say the puppy should be in there, but should be part of the action. It seems like just like an afterthought in this image. It's not really doing anything, right?
She just wanted to give you some
Good.
ideas.
So that would definitely customize it more for us, right? Exactly, it has to be in the action. Definitely would lose the flowers. Don't add anything to the sculpture, but lovely, perfect for the location. That's great.
Christy?
I think I'm more concerned about the size now. Is 3 feet about like this?
That's bigger.
So it's like this. Okay, so we're paying $90,000 for a sculpture that's this wide and 6 feet tall.
Let me give you the details.
That seems a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's bigger than that. The actual pad itself that it's going to sit on is more like a 5x7 piece. The individual, the height is 6 foot. The pieces are closer to 5 feet in width, so it'll be closer to 5 feet. So it's larger than you're thinking it is.
Well,
I know, right, we're going on the staff report. Yes. Exactly. That's why I asked the question.
Okay. Yes, it's larger than that because she added additional pieces to it.
So that was one person when we were talking 3 by 6. Is that what you're saying? Now that the family's there, it's obviously more.
No, I think that information was incorrect that was written in the
Okay.
staff report.
Okay. Duly noted.
Better not
And
come
you
back
wanted-
3 feet wide.
If you would also, Edie, before we call for a vote, please educate the audience on the Art in Public Places funding process.
Yes.
That was my next question.
Okay.
I'd be happy to do that. The Art in Public Places is a special developer impact fee. It can only be used for public art, which makes it a very specific type of fund. It can be used for art and culture. In the case of this city, we use it for public art and purchase public art throughout the city. We also work with developers who then have public art in the locations that are in public view. So you see those sprinkled throughout the community. We also purchase items, and we have over 50 items because we've been purchasing pieces from the La Quinta Art Festival since its inception. So the city holds a collection of public art well over $3 million throughout the city. And that's all, and it can only be used, the funds that are set aside can only be used for that purpose.
Thank you.
And currently, what is in that budget?
In terms of the funds available, I'd have to look that up for you, but we have some money that is encumbered for different projects. And rather than tell you a number, I'd rather get it for you.
Okay.
It's still a healthy budget, but I don't want to tell you an exact number.
Yeah, great piece. The only concern that I had too is that I don't know if the amount of dollars that we have there, how many people are actually going to see that piece. I don't know what our traffic count is around that circle.
There's a lot of people in that area, and there's a lot of people that use that park.
I realize the park, yeah.
And there's a lot of people that use that park to access from the urgent care off of Sealy Drive and down Miles.
Okay.
So we see that that's a pretty well-traveled area, and it's one way to get more pieces in North La Quinta. We do not have as much of an inventory in North La Quinta, with the exception of developer pieces. So that's another way to get those pieces there.
Okay, thank you.
With that, the matters before the council.
I move approval of the art purchase agreement with Jane Dedeker.
I'll second.
There you go.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Business item number 2, approve Silver Rock Resort fiscal year 2015-2016 annual plan.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Honorable City Council. This before you is the annual plan that is prepared each year by Landmark Golf Management. They are the operator for our Silver Rock Resort Golf Course. This annual plan gives the City Council details of the expenses and revenues that are generated at Silver Rock. This annual plan shows that the expenses are just over $3.6 million, and the revenues are just under $3.7 million. The considerations for this plan include that the rounds, we're tracking about 46,000 rounds per year. That number seems to be holding. So there has been an impact on the expenses, and the components of those impacts are the 12 months of lease versus 6 months. The Silver Rock, with City Council approval, we leased new equipment starting last November, so there was 6 months budgeted for the lease expenses. Now we have a full 12 months budgeted, so there's an extra $36,000 of expenses there. Also, the federal minimum, the state minimum wage increase, I'm sorry, it says federal, but that increased the operations cost by $25,000. And of course, the Silver Rock management agreement, that was approved on a separate item for the term of the contract. Additionally, with the revenues and the expenses, just need to note that the food and beverage operations are not a component of this because of the liquor license agreement that has to be held by our contractor, and so that is treated as a separate contract item. So that concludes the staff report. Staff, as well as Landmark Management, is here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great. Questions of staff? Yes,
If I can, thank you. Steve, within your report, you talk about capital reserves.
Correct.
And you've got capital reserves in here, some almost $64,000. Your budget is proposing a positive cash flow of some $53,000 after that. That positive cash flow of $53,000, where would that go?
The positive cash flow goes into our general fund, I believe. I'm sorry.
The $53,000 net from the operation goes to be part of the overall budget. That overall budget for Silver Rock also has additional costs for a portion of Steve, a few items that are not part of the contract management, issues that are...
Administrative costs for
yes,
City Hall.
that's correct. And you will see that as part of the budget on the 19th. But this budget and this particular program that you have before you is simply the Silver Rock operations that Landmark is putting together.
Okay. My concern was, should we add that 53 into the reserves, but if that is coming back to the general administrative cost of City Hall, then...
It's needed for the contract management and a few other items that are part of the property at Silver Rock beyond the management contract.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? As soon as they get the microphones together. Great. I see that our GPS, the cost is going to continue to remain the same. It's almost $5,000 a month for the GPS. With the advent of smartphones and range finders and things like that, are we going to continue to use those? Or are we looking at phasing those out?
Good afternoon. That's a great question. In my opinion, I think eventually it will get that way. The big part about the GPS system at Silver Rock is also it's a course management for us. It allows us to manage pace of play, where the carts are, battery usage, things of that nature. But I do believe in the future with the smartphone technology, the yardages will go that way, yeah.
But our rangers are kind of keeping them on pace as well too, right?
That's correct. That's correct. But our GPS system provides an aerial view of where all the carts are, and so we can see it from a bird's eye where the slow parts are.
Okay.
Other questions for Randy while he's up there? John, you have a...
No, that was it for Randy.
I do, so if you...
I have a question, madam. In regard to the Southern California Golf Association Youth on Course program, is something that we recently started, correct?
Yes. We've always had a junior program at Silver Rock. We did enroll with them, and we're going to be partaking in that program, I believe, in mid-June, this summer.
Would that be year-round or only for summer?
It would just be for the summer. Now, we do have a junior program. It's a great junior program. We offer junior rates from year-round. Juniors can play our golf course for $25. We have walk-in junior rates in the afternoon. So it's a great program that we've had since day one.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions? I've got a couple. On the assumptions, Randy, the average projected revenue versus the average green fee, there's about a $10 differential. Is that the average differential that most golf courses see? Should it be higher? Are we getting more than our share? What's the standard?
You're talking about the green fee versus the total?
The 68 versus 78.
Yeah, well, the green fee is just basically green fees divided by rounds.
Right.
And our total revenue factors in merchandise sales. It has all the other revenue. There's teach golf instructors in there. There's a driving range revenue. I couldn't speak to exactly what the other golf courses would get as far as total revenue, but this has been pretty consistent with us over the last 9 years or so.
And then I know in the management agreement we allow or call for the 2% capital reserve. Is that sufficient?
I think it's sufficient. I mean, we used it this year. We've got additional maintenance equipment that's going to be coming up in the next 1 to 2 years, so it's nice to have that. We have irrigation needs potentially in the future that we're going to need to have that nice, healthy reserve there.
Right. And then under the resident card fees, it indicates the revenue is based on selling 570 resident cards in the next fiscal year. Is that based on who's up for renewal on their 3-year cycle? Is it brand new cards? Is it a combination?
It's a combination, and we use that basically off of last year's data, and that's our best guesstimate right now. But yeah, that's new cards and renewal cards.
Okay. And I do want to comment on the marketing, because I was very pleased to see that you incorporated all of the fabulous digital and internet components using JNS and Madden Media, and that you clearly have received great results, at least from numbers of likes and interactions. I guess my question then is, knowing that is something that we look at from an ROI standpoint, are there measurement tools in place to really look at, do we want to shift any of those dollars because we're yielding a much better return, and do we know what that return is versus just knowing it's working?
I don't know if I could answer that question. I don't know if there's a real ROI on that.
I think I would challenge JNS. They do that for CDB, so I'm thinking that they could help find ways to track that.
That would be a media efficiency rate. That's the way it's measured. And basically, you should be able to tie, whenever you run an ad, be able to measure if there is actually more of interest on your website or more booking for the matter. So that would be a media efficiency rate that is used for radio and TV.
And then I guess I would just comment that if our marketing budget is staying about the same, and we're projecting about the same amount of rounds, do we then look at, do we need as much marketing to sustain that? We've got a large percentage, well, 30% going from resident bookings. That's a known customer base. Obviously, we want to still keep that top of mind and keep winning those awards. But obviously, you've done a great job shifting the focus on the internet and digital component, and you see Silver Rock and hear Silver Rock quite a bit, so that's exciting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, we've tried to really keep the Silver Rock, Challenge the Rock, theme brand out there for for all of our visitors in the Coachella Valley, throughout the year. So, could we reduce it? Possibly. I don't know what the result would be.
Yeah, another quick question on the assumption of rounds. There are 46,745. What were the actual rounds last year?
It was around 46,700, I believe. I don't know that exactly. Do you have those numbers? I mean, it was right around there.
Okay, so we're not assuming that we're going to have a 10% increase or 10% decrease.
Well, you're talking about this past year was a little different because we had 9 holes from May through basically September.
Okay.
So our rounds were down a little bit, but we're anticipating this next fiscal year we'll be back to normal.
Getting back up to full speed. So that's kind of the average over the last several years that we've had.
We've a slight increase, but slight and steady increase.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much 100% utilized in the season time. I mean, we sell out every day. I mean, you can only put so many marbles in a jar. And we're pretty efficient with the way we book our tea times. We do 7 and 8 minute intro.
That was my next question. Is you're running at 7 or 8 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can't put any more people on the golf course without jeopardizing the experience and the pace of play.
Correct. And the only criticism that I've heard out there is pace of play. Yeah. It gets slow a little times, and that's tough. So
it's a tough course.
Yeah, they want to play the back tees. They're paying money, and play the back tees. Right. Any thought about moving those tees up? I mean, I'm sure you guys have done that.
We did. We actually we've implemented the combo tee. I think that's been the last 2 years, and so a lot of the men were playing the blue tees because they felt the white tees were too short. And so we introduced the combo tees, and that's been really successful. But you always have that element where they feel like they can play the course back. It's a little bit of a challenge sometimes.
A question about the capacity of the course. You are projecting over 46,000 rounds. What is the true capacity, the maximum capacity of Silver Rock, if you had to put a number?
Well, I think the only time that we could put more people on the golf course would be our shoulder seasons and in the summertime. I mean, November we're full. I mean, daylight is relatively short. We only can play until 5 o'clock for most of the winter months. We could probably do, assuming you did 250 golfers in July and August, We could do 60,000 rounds. I'd have to do the math.
But realistically, we are almost at capacity.
We're pretty close, yeah.
So if it comes down to generate more revenues, obviously you cannot increase capacity, right? And how do you measure what is the right price, the right cost for a round of golf, green fees? How are those established, including residents?
This year, we actually went to dynamic pricing. So it's basically a software that looks at our tee sheet, looks at utilization, and if our tee sheet is open, the price will drop, and conversely, if it's full, the price will rise.
Perfect. Perfect. Great. Love it.
Anything else?
Not a question for Randy, I just have a comment.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, Randy.
Question for Randy. One more question here. For the record, Randy, what water do you guys use to irrigate Silver Rock?
About 99% canal water. We do have a well on site, but it's rarely used.
Well, I think you guys are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Giving you a little gray hair, but I think you guys are doing a great job.
I didn't notice that, man.
Thank you, Christy.
Yes, at one point in time, and I don't know if we're going to do this during the budget, but Frank and I were talking about this. We need to explain to the public that Silver Rock cannot make a profit. So, and that's because of how we purchased the land, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we get a lot of questions, and I think it's well deserved from our constituents about, oh, you're pouring money into Silver Rock. Well, so.
It's a recreational amenity.
It is a recreational amenity, but it's not there to, in terms of covering our operating costs, is this what we can do? But to increase revenue and make a profit, we cannot do that because of how we purchase the land. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Somehow that needs to be emphasized a little bit more and not kept a secret, I think. Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll ask for a motion.
I will move to approve the Silver Rock Resort 2015-2016 annual plan as submitted by Landmark Golf Management LLC.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will move on to business item number 3, which is consent item number 12. Approve a contract extension with Santa Fe Building Maintenance for fiscal year 2015-16 janitorial services.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. This is for, do you need a staff report or do you just, I'm sorry.
If I can, Madam Mayor, I don't as much need a staff report because I understand what you're doing, just taking the current contract and rolling it over another year. A couple of concerns I have. One, you know, we've changed the senior center to wellness center and expanded the size of that substantially. We're also looking to make substantial changes to the library and increasing that, and I believe the library as well is included in this contract. My concern is that this is a contract for a firm that's outside the Coachella Valley. And I know we haven't looked, when we first did this a number back in, I want to say 2012, we didn't get any local folks looking to this contract. And I would ask that we can send this back out for an RFP and see if there are some local firms that can provide this service to, again, help the local economy, but as well as with the changes that we've done at the Wellness Center and as well as the library, maybe we need to take a look at this.
And if I may comment on that, actually in 2012 there were local firms that provided a bid, but at the time, as Greg Butler explained, they were not sizable or able to actually handle the work. 2 years went by, perhaps experience has been building up, maybe we should take a look at it. But
give the local vendors an opportunity to serve here in La Quinta.
The question is, do we have the time?
One clarification is we're not making any expansion changes to the library. It will be the same size. We're doing renovations to the inside, changing the carpet, and so it won't be any larger, and the cost for the library will not be increased once we do those renovations. We're just it's getting a facelift basically inside the library. And you're correct about the other. The other thing I just wanted to share, and we're happy to go out for an RFP RFP, or to send it out if that's what you prefer to do. This package was set up so that there could be some extensions. Next year, for certain, it has to go out contractually to a bid to the community. So we will go either way. If you want to do it now, or if you wanted to look at when we actually will, by contract, have to go out in a year from now. So we just wanted to make sure you understood the contract nuances.
I understand, but again, to help the local economy and the vendors here in the valley, I think it'd be good to be able to spend our money locally if we've got the opportunity. Whether we do an RFP this year or we do an RFP next year, we're still going to do an RFP within a relatively short period of time.
That's correct.
So why not do it sooner than later?
I would have to agree, and it will give us also an idea if anything has changed since the last time we did it. So we'll get also a feel for what to expect next year.
Can you get this done by July 1st?
Yeah,
Given
that's the
our
problem.
budget, I'm concerned that
That's the problem.
we approve the extension.
It's going to be close because I have the parks contract got approved tonight. It goes out tomorrow. And then with the 1 month bid time and everything, it comes back to City Council on June 16th, I believe. What's the second meeting in June? For the contract to start in July. So it would be very tight. There might be a couple days in early July where we might,
but we
could probably get through. We could probably do it. The contract would probably come to City Council first meeting in July.
Do you want to do it?
I think we should.
There's a couple more points I'd like to make. Just the price that the janitorial service gave us for the expansion is based on the price per square foot that they originally bid back in 2012. So with the exception of the minimum wage requirements increasing, their rate is still the same as when they originally bid. Additionally, I'd like to point out that in the past we had looked at local contractor preference. We are not able to do that. Lieutenant Tucker reviewed that local contractor preference, and we are not able to do that unless we are able to prove, or the City Council is able to show, that a local contractor is at a disadvantage to a contractor bidding from outside of the area.
So, I mean, that's been done in numerous contracts for numerous municipalities for a long time.
Well, as was mentioned, we looked at the issue, and this was in connection, I think, back in 2012, where there was reference to a prior resolution that was adopted long ago in 2005 that established a preference for local vendors. But there is a Ninth Circuit, a federal court of appeal case that basically outlined the standard that's acceptable, as was just iterated, where there needs to be a situation where the council legitimately finds that local firms are disadvantaged. There are other items that may also come into play if you are bringing up local preferences. However, if I understand your request, it's that if you were to have an RFP open to everybody, and there happened to be someone who was in the Coachella Valley without necessarily applying a local preference, then you don't need to worry necessarily about that particular issue. But if there is to be a local preference applied, then there would need to be this process of making a disadvantage
I don't know that we need to give them an advantage per se, but at least make it available to the local vendors, here in the Coachella Valley.
And again, it was done, but other people had bid in 2012, correct? The problem is they didn't have the capacity, they didn't have the capability to perform based to the criteria of the request for bids. We can even just renew this contract for a year and then gear up for the next year. If we are putting city staff in a bind, it sounds very tight. It sounds like they may be able to do it, but it sounds like a big.
You've got the RFP on the shelf. Can't you just pull the last one you just did and change the date?
I'll have to research that. That was done under Greg Butler when Building and Safety still had their own. So, and the language has also changed quite a bit because of the new prevailing wage language. Going through the parks bid process, I had to basically rewrite every page of that.
Well, I don't want to tell local vendors that we can't use them because we don't want to take the time to offer it to them. I don't think that's the right thing to do.
If you want us to do an RFP, we will make it happen. It may come to you in early July, but that's not a problem. We've had that be the case before. We'll work with the existing vendor on that. If that's your preference, we'll make it happen.
Question?
Yes.
2 questions. Are they doing a good job? And 2, are they using local people to work?
Yes, with the exception of the management itself, 2 key members who are out in San Bernardino. The staff who actually works here on a nightly basis, they are living within the area. Staff here has become very fond of the janitor who works here every evening. We've gotten to know him pretty well, but he does live here locally, as well as the janitors for our other facilities.
So in my mind, that makes a difference, because here you've got ownership in a variety of places, but if we've got people living in our community and working, that may not be the case 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, based on this process. I mean, it is a short time frame. We've got budget we're looking at. We've got a few other things we're looking at. I'd like to see us just move forward with this and then put that on the table, just like we do other things in terms of enhancing and promoting local for the coming year. Since we have 1 year left on this anyway, correct?
You have the office to extend the
Well, Madam Mayor, I understand it, but I'll make the motion whether it live or dies, but I'll make the motion that we send this out to RFP.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Pick a button. Motion passes 3-2 with noes from Mayor Evans and Mayor Pro Tem Franklin.
We'll get it done.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Okay, let's stay on track here. We're moving to consent calendar item number 17, which is becoming business item number 4. That is the appropriate funding and award contract to Brent Construction Company to construct Adams Street Signal and Street Improvement Project.
Okay, do we need a staff report? Or?
Let's try it without a staff
All
report,
right.
and we'll have them on hand for questions.
Okay, I like that. My concern here is that several fold. One is that the engineer's estimate was basically $100,000 less than granite. And I know in the past we've kind of had some problems with that, and we sort of feel like the engineers maybe need to be updated a little bit more or something. That's not a big problem. The problem that I have is that there were only, for the RFP, only 2 folks responded, but I'm also given to understand that this RFP didn't go out the way it should have in terms of numbers of companies.
Well, this is, now we're back on the construction side as opposed to selecting service contracts, in that we have to follow the public bidding process, and we followed our normal process. We put it out to the plan rooms, and then we basically have to wait and see who bids our project, and it is awarded based on the lowest responsive bidder. In this case, we had just 2 bidders. We do have evidence that other subcontractors and so forth pulled the plans, but we did get a pretty low bidder turnout, and not 100% sure why. There's at least at least one other contractor that usually bids this kind of work that would have probably helped with a 3rd bid, but for one reason or another, they didn't bid it. And so that's why we have as an alternative to awarding is we could go back out to bid. Of course, the timing on this isn't the normal signal type work we do, because it's attached to one of our major commercial centers, and we have a memorandum of understanding of when the improvements would be constructed by. We think we can still squeeze it in if we did go out to rebid, but we'd be right at the November 1st deadline for getting the work done ahead of the MOU requirement.
Okay, the only reason I really wanted to discuss this was that when you only have 2 bidders,
Doesn't give us a lot of options.
Yes, we don't have a lot of choices, and it almost says to me that, well, maybe the RFP didn't, and I'm not talking about you, just didn't go to all the folks that should have, because it's a little unusual just to have two. If it's going to put you completely behind the gun to, go out for another RFP, I'm not sure that's a necessary. Granted, we've had a good relationship with them, but just the two people bidding on it.
We've already circled back to Planwell as our company that distributes our bids and puts them out into the different plan rooms to try and make sure that they are getting to all the plan rooms where we have the contractors that normally bid our project. And so we're following up with them to make sure that as many contractors as possible are aware of our projects. But at the end of the day, they have to decide whether they bid them or not.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions? We do have a request to speak on this item. If I could bring up Mr. David Drake. Please provide your name and address for the record as well.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I appreciate you allowing me to speak. Mr. Sheldon asked me to come up and say hello. He's in Pennsylvania with his wife for 44 years, celebrating his anniversary with his family, and would like to have been here. And I know I've worked with Mr. Sheldon on this project off and on, consulting with him, and he's very much for this intersection. He has some concerns. Basically, he really would like to see this intersection completed. There's a November date, I believe, of 1st of November to complete this project. And the reason for that is his retail clients, Hobby Lobby, Kohl's, and mom and pop shops and things of that nature going into the 4th quarter, where they make, as you know, we're in a seasonal market here, 6 to 9 months to make money. And they all desperately try to do that at that time. And they really don't want to see that intersection blocked off or construction going on that time to inhibit this, their retail, with their people going into their retail center. And so they're hoping that you kind of would move forward on this and get this intersection completed before November 1st. And thank you.
Thank you. There's no other questions?
Sure. Thank you. Tim, on your report, on this table on page 126, on the original budget, you have construction costs of $470,000. Should that number be actually $599,000? Where you have on page 131 our extended price on the engineer's estimate?
Could you read that question?
Sure. On the table on page 126, under original budget, it has construction costs of $470,460. And then reading the report on page 131, our construction cost based on your engineer's estimate looks to be $599,000. So I'm wondering, is that 470, should that have been a higher figure?
Well, I think part of that is that we included the additive alternates with the CVWD. Those were I think 3 out of the 4 alternates were for them, and so we didn't include those because we have an agreement with the water district that they'll write us a check for those adjustments that we're making to their utilities when we do the work. So that wasn't in that budget that you saw in the staff report.
So the estimated budget to complete of $1.1 million using the vendor, does that include funds that will be reimbursed then by the water district?
That total price, we will come down by the $10,000 that I mentioned when we go to.
10,000, that's it?
That's it.
Okay. I was just confused with the 470,000 versus the 599. So those are, that 470 is correct based on what you guys have designed?
That's correct. It doesn't include, and you can correct, Ed or Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, but those costs, that engineer's estimate did not include the CVWD estimate in prices when we ran this estimate.
But that's only $10,000.
It's only $10,000 for those additive alternates.
Okay, so if I could ask Nick,
Nick, come on up.
Please. Nick, of this $599,000 on the one page versus a 470, are there other costs in that column on page 126 that are included in the 599? I'm trying to tie the two out.
The difference, but why is the budget showing a 400,000, 470? Why is the engineer's estimate 599 on the bid comparison?
Yes, sir.
The original budget, if you recall, with all the times that you've talked about this, we've never actually increased our original budget, except one time when we brought the MOU from the developer with you. So even though the engineer's estimate was going up and creeping up with the scope change, and as things happen on the development site and all the other issues, because we had not bid the project and we did not have actual bids, we never actually increased the city's money on the project. As early as the study session that you were reviewing with the CIP priorities, one of the items in the staff report basically attempted, poorly, my fault, attempted to alert you that there might be a budget problem with this once we got the bids, because the engineer's estimate was showing a higher number than our construction budget.
Okay. Okay. I just saw a substantial increase between the two. But you're saying a big part of that is because of the actual engineer's drawings. Once we had the actual drawing, so to speak, then our budget, our own engineer's budget was going to go up substantially.
Right, and the budget that you see in the original budget, that was adopted with your capital improvement plan back in 2012.
Okay.
Okay, and so as time progresses and you're adding development and improvements on private land, the engineer's estimate kept going up, but we didn't have a budget problem then because we didn't have any bids, so we didn't know what to ask you for. Now we have bids, and so unfortunately we know what to ask you for, and it's not pleasant.
And the source of funds for this is both DIF and Measure A, and not any general funds?
That's correct. That's correct. There's actually 3 funding sources here, and 2 of them are development related. Actual development contributions from Coles and Mr. Shevlin's properties. Your Measure A money, which is new to transportation, that makes up a lot of your transportation shortfall on projects that aren't eligible for DIF. And then also this project is listed in your DIF as an eligible improvement, and we luckily have been accruing some DIF because you haven't been spending it because it's been committed. Well, all of a sudden it's freed up again, and now you can put it back on these projects. And so there is no general fund money.
Thank you, Nick. That's all I have.
And I apologize for not wearing a tie.
Tell you what.
All right, with that, matters before the council.
Okay, I move to appropriate. I move to appropriate funding and award contract to Granite Construction Company to construct Adams Street Signal and Street Improvement Project.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, move on to business item number 5, which is consent item number 22, and that would be appropriate funding and include Monroe Street pavement rehabilitation project in the fiscal year 2014-15 capital improvement plan.
Okay.
And then, go ahead.
Tim, I received an email from you today with respect to this. Can you tell us what, I didn't make a copy of it, and I should have, I don't have it in front of me, but what portion is going to be done soon that was in your email by developers or whatever?
I'm going to try to pull up a map that I think shows that very well.
The change in discussion was, the report says 54 to 55, and I thought we were discussing 54 to airport, but there's information regarding future developments happening there that would assume responsibilities for another portion of that from Monroe.
Well, while we're trying to pull it up now, basically, the city's project is going to provide a rehab of what the county originally constructed, starting at Avenue 54, the single lane that will go to the south until we reach the northerly border of the estates, which is a subdivision that's been there for quite a long time. And that project has the full width street improvements, the 2 through lanes, and so we'll be widening there and replacing that pavement as well, and then we'll stop. because then there is 2 parcels that are undeveloped at this point, but about to be developed. And one is the Montero project, which is the larger subdivision, and it has a small piece to the north that is going to have its street widened along Monroe in front of both of those pieces. And we're expecting that to start actually within the next month.
Okay, so Montero is south of 55 or north of 55?
It's just south of 55. Yeah, both the little parcel that I was mentioning as well as the Montero, which is the longer stretch before you get down to the Norman course, they're both between the estates and the Norman course.
And airport.
Yeah, and then airport is to the south of the Norman course. So you'll have new pavement or newer pavement all the way from 54, between 54 and airport when it's all said and done.
That's the intent based on the current condition of that road.
Right. So I just have a comment on that. As you know, I drive that. It's not dangerous. It's not pleasant. It's got a couple little potholes. So that's just my opinion, and I think that spending city money on that as a Band-Aid approach, I have a hard time with that, because sooner or later it's going to get ripped up, and then the developers will take care of it. The second thing is I'm very sympathetic with Trilogy and wanting to walk and so forth and so on, but they have a sidewalk all the way along 60. Another sidewalk all the way up Madison. They don't have to walk on Monroe when there's nothing there for them. So from that standpoint, I'm not overly sympathetic that we spend money on something that's just going to be ripped up in a year or two anyway. So.
But it's not just about the Trilogy residents, it's about the estate the ones that are south that are being impacted at this.
It's just not that bad, Linda. It's not that bad. No, it really isn't.
There's some potholes, and it's dark out, and when it rains, it floods.
Okay, whatever.
Okay,
so I just wanted to
any other
put
questions?
that out there.
With that, the matters before the council? You need a motion?
And I should know, these funds are, okay, the unappropriated general fund?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we've had a number of people before us on this, and hopefully the Griffin Ranch will have some development someday. I don't know, and the others, but I think we should. We talked about it earlier in our study session, so I'll make the motion to appropriate funding the amount of $350,000 from unappropriated general fund reserves and include Monroe Street pavement rehabilitation project in the city's fiscal 2014-15 capital improvement plan.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes 4-1 with Mayor Pro Tem Franklin voting no. Okay, we'll move on to business item number 6. We're almost there, which is consent item number 24. And that is establish an advisory committee to evaluate the city's financial needs and advertise to fill vacancies. Do we want a staff report, or you want comments and questions?
I don't think we need a staff report, do we, necessarily?
Okay. You want to start, Christy?
Yes. Okay, I have a problem with this, well, a couple of problems, but one problem that I have, which is on page 186, it says committee members will be unpaid volunteers. That's fine. They need to have a connection to La Quinta, but they don't need to live here. That bothers me a bit. And then the other thing about this is that we need to call this what it is. Actually, we know what our revenue problems are, and perhaps some volunteers from the city need to look at those and tell us too. But in my mind and my way of thinking, this is a review for us to do a sales tax increase. So why don't we call it what it is? I mean, I just think this is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Be upfront with what we're
Yeah, we'll tell them what we're doing. Now, we haven't had a vote on this, so I don't know, how it's going, but what is the purpose of this? Please tell me what the purpose of this is if it's not about an increase in sales tax.
Well, I'm happy to take a stab at that.
Sure.
Robert, you want to go first?
Well, yeah, give me a second.
Okay.
Basically, when you involve the community, at one point, if we take a vote and we put a measure on the ballot, My understanding is that we have to step back.
No.
It's not correct.
No, not until July or August, right?
Well, once it's on, you said once it's on the ballot.
On the ballot.
On the ballot.
But that's
Then
not
you
until
have to
July or
step
August.
Well, but that's when things, people start paying attention to what comes through the mail and what has to be done and what this is all about. Having about 15 people that have gone through the process and can help us answering the question, why not this tax or why not that tax, and be able to say, well, I went through the process, and indeed, because of the vote requirement, because of the margin like 50 plus 1, we should go with a sales tax versus light and landscaping, which was 2/3, special assessment and all that. So that having 15 people that have gone through the process that then can speak intelligently about it, I think it would be.
I don't have a problem with that. I do not have a problem with that, but call it what it is.
Well, let's call it what it is.
Okay, let's.
So we have not made a decision that that's what it is yet.
Exactly.
So,
But then why are we going through the exercise if we don't have a 4-5 vote on this? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it's part of the education process of having a clear understanding of what the financial options are. There may be some other revenue source that this committee comes to us with as an idea or an option other than a sales tax. And on the non-La Quinta piece, obviously we have to go through a vacancy process in that piece. I think it's extremely valuable to have somebody from the outside who may be in a city that participated in this type of exercise that could help, we can glean from their experience on how did that permeate, how did that education occur, how did the outreach efforts benefit.
Is it the intent of this committee, no, is it our intent when we establish this committee to let them know what we're really looking for?
I think so.
Well, if they're evaluating our financial needs,
right,
then they're likely going to see what we have been discussing and learning about what our future holds, and that we're falling short in revenue versus expenses.
Okay. Well, I totally disagree with you on someone from the outside. That could be a whole bad can of worms. But nevertheless, I just think that when we establish this, we need to be honest with the folks that are going to be on this committee. That's all. And that's not what's here.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I like the idea of La Quinta residents on this because it affects them in a big way. But I can appreciate the expertise and understanding on some that may not be in La Quinta, but we need that expertise in this room, or in this group. And I don't know if it's our intent later to hire experts, to hire professionals to help us design the plan to be able to put these things together. And there's going to be quite a bit of work, and I would imagine at some point we're going to need professionals to give us some insight on how these things work and how they've worked in other communities or not worked in other communities from what they've done wrong. So, I mean, we are looking at a sales tax increase, and hopefully we have the 4 votes on this council to do that. But in regards to those that are not residents, I would look at that as professionals in this realm. Like we have on some of our committees, we can have non-residents on a committee. I think it's a historical society. If they're a professional in that realm, they don't necessarily have to be a resident. And so in that same regard, if we're looking at professionals in this standpoint, then they may not have to be a resident because we want the professional.
That's not stated in here.
Right, no, and again, we can define that criteria. Right now, we're saying we're establishing it. We should, again, the number of committee members will be based on applicants. I think the meeting frequency is pretty aggressive, and with the snowbirds, we may want that input, and if they can't fulfill that obligation and to do that, do we have expectations, do we have milestones? So obviously there's a lot to vet out, but maybe we say one member of the committee could be from the outside that would provide, and obviously that'd be based on their qualifications and what they bring to the table, just like any other applicant would.
Exactly, and I'm torn on that because you could have a business owner that doesn't live in the city, but however has a business that's affected. You could have a police officer that might want to serve that doesn't live in police, in the city, or a firefighter or any other service professional as well too. So that shouldn't preclude them from being involved. Right. So I'm kind of torn about the residents part because I think when we pick somebody, we're going to go on qualifications and what they have to offer, and just the fact that they don't live here, but they may be involved. I think that's a in the city may outweigh that residency.
Okay, I'm good with that. I don't have a problem with that. I would like for council to be very mindful that if we do this committee, that we need their recommendations by January, because we only have January till the general election.
We may get those.
And we have to
get them
back
before.
off.
Right. Get them before?
Exactly, but I think not later than January. We can't wait a year from now and then start trying to educate.
If I may, the schedule is pretty aggressive, but it's specified in the staff report.
Yep.
And I would imagine that the day we interview these candidates, we'll explain a little bit better what this committee is about, and maybe give them some background to facilitate their understanding of what's going on. Perhaps there could be a presentation before we start making a selection, so they understand various sources of revenue, and maybe some of them, they're here volunteering, they say, well, enough of this, I'm out of here. But I will really say that, yeah, we probably should tee up the entire conversation at the interview time, what the exercise is all about, and get the commitment for the schedule. I agree with you,
Well,
Mayor.
if we're looking at May of 2016 to report the outline for the ballot measure, we are way behind the gun, in my opinion. Chris, any comments?
I think the presentation on June 16th would make a lot of sense. I think once the council decides to select the appointees, staff is well aware that we had to hit the ground running and there's lots of work to do. So the idea is once you establish the criteria, make the selection, we will be moving fast and furious through all these items. So definitely hear the concerns, and so we'll work with the city manager to look at a more aggressive schedule.
Thank you. Okay, good.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Any questions?
I had some concern that this may need to be actually twice a month. Is that going to be a burden on some time frames versus only once a month? But it sounds like staff, with the amount of work that you guys are seeing is needed, it may need twice a month.
Correct. Twice a month is needed. I think it's the priority of this item, as well as the amount of work that the committee will probably ask for in terms of revenue, understanding the basic finances. We want to afford them that ability to see through that themselves.
That needs to make very clear then on there.
Yeah, they can picture that for
That's good.
themselves.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right, that concludes our business session items as amended, and we'll move to, should we hold off on study session, move to public hearing? It's a pleasure.
It was noted for
5 o'clock. I would like to respect not getting too far out on public hearing. Tustin, you're okay with us holding the logo brand discussion? We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll proceed with our public hearing items. And we did make a decision in the beginning of the meeting to reverse the items. So number 2 will go first on the list.
I think I got it.